the email on my screen, reading it for the fifth time, even though each word felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. Subject: Training Transition. Effective immediately from Marcus Peterson, CEO, to Sarah Mitchell, Head of Operations. Sarah, starting Monday, you'll begin transitioning your responsibilities to Kevin Peterson. Over the next month, ensure he's fully trained on all operational aspects. Your last day will be October 15th. This decision is final. Best, Marcus, 15 years. I've given this company 15 years of my life. Worked my way up from junior analyst to head of operations. Built the systems that had transformed Davidson and Mills from a struggling regional player into an industry leader. And now I was being replaced by the CEO's 26-year-old nephew, whose biggest achievement was managing not to flunk out of business school. My hands shook as I closed my laptop. Through the glass walls of my office, I could see Kevin lounging at his desk, feet propped up, watching something on his phone. He'd been here 3 months as a management trainee, contributing nothing except endless complaints about the coffee quality and our outdated dress code. "Come in," I called out at the knock on my door, quickly wiping my eyes. Marcus Peterson himself stood in the doorway, his expensive suit and carefully styled gray hair a stark contrast to the smirk on his face. "Sarah, got my email, I assume." He settled into one of my visitor chairs without waiting for an invitation. "Look, I know this might seem sudden, but Kevin needs this opportunity. He's family, and family comes first." "Marcus," I kept my voice steady, professional. "The Miller merger is in final stages. The new inventory system rollout starts next week. The key 4 projections." He waved his hand dismissively. "Kevin will handle all that. Just make sure you train him properly. He spends half his day on TikTok." The words burst out before I could stop them. "He doesn't understand basic operations, let alone complex merger integrations. This could sink the company." Marcus's face hardened. "Careful, Sarah. Don't make this personal. Kevin has fresh ideas, new perspectives. Frankly, we need some young blood around here. Someone who understands modern business." "Modern business?" I laughed bitterly. "Like what?" "His suggestion to invest our emergency fund in Dogecoin." "That's enough." Marcus stood, his fake friendly demeanor vanishing. "Train Kevin, clear out your office, get your severance, or leave now with nothing. Your choice." As he stormed out, I saw Kevin watching through the glass, not even trying to hide his smirk. My severance package sat unopened on my desk. 2 months' pay for 15 years of service. The injustice of it burned in my throat. What Marcus didn't know, what no one knew, was that I'd been preparing for something like this for years. Not this exactly, but I'd seen too many talented people pushed out, replaced by Marcus's endless parade of incompetent relatives and golf buddies. I'd watched him slowly destroy everything we built, all while padding his own pockets and his family's positions. So I'd started buying stock. Small amounts at first, whenever I could afford it. Then larger chunks when my investments in other areas paid off. Always through different brokers, different entities. For 3 years, I'd been the mysterious investor steadily acquiring shares, keeping just under the disclosure threshold. Last week, when rumors of Kevin's promotion started circulating, I'd made my final move. One last major purchase, carefully timed and structured. The paperwork was probably sitting on the board secretary's desk right now, waiting to be processed. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a small leather portfolio. Inside was a single document, proof of my controlling interest in Davidson and Mills, now at 51%. Obtained through careful planning, smart investing, and a lot of patience. Marcus thought he was forcing me to train my replacement. In reality, I was about to become his boss. The quarterly board meeting was in 2 days. Marcus had no idea that while he was busy pushing me out, I'd been quietly taking control of his company. He thought Kevin needed an opportunity. Well, I was about to give everyone a masterclass in real modern business. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I'd saved months ago. "Mr. Harrison, Sarah Mitchell. About that board seat we discussed. I'm ready to accept." The next morning, I arrived early. The office was quiet, most people wouldn't be in for another hour. I needed this time to prepare, to steady my nerves. The document confirming my controlling interest felt heavy in my bag. I walked past my office, soon to be Kevin's office, according to Marcus's grand plans, and headed to the conference room. Started setting up my presentation, the one I've been perfecting for months. The one that would detail every questionable decision, every nepotistic hire, every financial misstep Marcus had made over the past 5 years. Bit early for a terminated employee, isn't it? I turned to find Marcus in the doorway, coffee in hand, looking smug. Board meetings not for hours, and it's closed session anyway. No need for any last-minute presentations. Actually, I smiled, feeling surprisingly calm. I have every right to be here. In fact, I need to prepare. It's my first meeting as majority shareholder. The coffee cup slipped from his hand, splattering across the carpet. What did you say? I slid the document across the table. 51%, Marcus. Through completely legal, properly documented stock purchases over the past 3 years. You were so busy watching your nephew's TikToks, you never noticed who was buying up your company. His face went from red to white as he scanned the paperwork. This is impossible. You can't afford. You're just an employee. I finished for him. You never did bother to acknowledge my contributions properly. My bonuses, my stock options, I invested every penny. While you were busy installing your family members in cushy positions, I was quietly becoming your boss. The sound of voices in the hallway made him jump. Other early arrivals, starting their day, unaware of the drama unfolding in the conference room. You can't do this, he whispered, but his voice had lost all its previous authority. The board will be very interested in my presentation today, especially the part about the money you've been funneling to your brother's fake consulting company. Or should we discuss Kevin's proposed Dogecoin investment first? He gripped the back of a chair, knuckles white. What do you want? Want? I logged into my laptop, pulled up my presentation. I want to run this company properly, Marcus. No more nepotism. No more questionable financial decisions. No more pushing out talented people to make room for your relatives. I'll resign, he offered quickly. Just name your price. I almost laughed at how quickly he turned to bribery. Oh, I don't want your resignation yet. First, you're going to sit through this board meeting. You're going to watch as I detail every mistake you've made. Then you're going to experience what it feels like to be at someone else's mercy. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here he was, begging to keep his job, just like I had yesterday. But unlike him, I wasn't going to enjoy his humiliation. This wasn't about revenge. It was about fixing what he'd broken. The board members will be here soon, I said, checking my watch. Why don't you get yourself together? It's going to be a long meeting. As he stumbled out, I saw Kevin arriving, sauntering toward what he thought would be his new office. He had no idea that his cushy promotion was about to evaporate along with all of Marcus's authority to grant it. I'd worked 15 years to build this company into something special. Now I had the power to protect it, and everyone else Marcus had tried to push aside. The board meeting was about to change everything, and I was ready. The boardroom filled slowly. I recognized most of the faces. Elderly men in expensive suits who'd rubber-stamped Marcus's decisions for years. They barely glanced at me as they took their seats, probably assuming I was there to take notes or serve coffee. Marcus sat at the head of the table, his usual confidence replaced by a sickly pallor. His brother James, Kevin's father, and another board member kept shooting him concerned looks. I noticed Marcus hadn't warned him about what was coming. Before we begin, Marcus's voice cracked slightly. There's been a development. Ms. Mitchell has some information to share. All eyes turned to me, most expressions ranging from confused to annoyed. James Peterson actually checked his watch. Thank you, Marcus. I stood, placing my documents on the table. As of yesterday, I am the majority shareholder of Davidson and Mills, holding 51% of voting shares. The reaction was immediate. James Peterson jumped to his feet, face red. That's impossible. Where would you get that kind of money? I smiled, sliding copies of my documentation to each board member. 15 years of bonuses, stock options, and smart investments. Every purchase properly documented and legally executed. You can verify with your own attorneys, but I assure you it's ironclad. This is absurd, James sputtered. Marcus, do something. But Marcus just stared at the table, knowing what was coming next. Now let's discuss some concerning patterns I've observed. I continued pulling up my presentation, starting with the $2.3 million in consulting fees paid to Peterson Analytics last year. James went pale. His consulting company, the one that had never produced a single report or deliverable. Or perhaps we should examine the 7 executive positions currently held by Peterson family members, none of whom met the minimum qualifications for their roles. I clicked through slides showing their resumes or lack thereof, including the recent attempt to install Kevin Peterson as head of operations, despite his complete lack of relevant experience. The other board members were flipping through my documentation now, their expressions darkening as they realized the extent of the nepotism and mismanagement. This ends today, I stated firmly. I'm implementing immediate changes to protect this company's future. What followed was the most intense 3 hours of my life. I detailed every questionable decision, every wasteful expenditure, every instance of nepotism that had weakened our company. The board members, many of whom had dozed through previous meetings, were now fully engaged. By the time I finished, the mood in the room had shifted dramatically. These men might have been Marcus's golf buddies, but they were also businessmen who'd invested heavily in Davidson and Mills. They couldn't ignore the evidence of mismanagement I presented. I moved for an immediate vote of no confidence in Marcus Peterson as CEO. Richard Harrison, our oldest board member, announced. Others quickly seconded. Marcus finally found his voice. You can't do this. This company has been in my family for 3 generations. I cut in, and you've nearly destroyed it with your nepotism and mismanagement. The vote, gentlemen? It was unanimous. Even James, seeing which way the wind was blowing, voted to remove his own brother as CEO. Ms. Mitchell, Harrison turned to me. Given your controlling interest and evident understanding of this company's operations, I move to appoint you as interim CEO. All in favor? Another unanimous vote. Marcus slumped in his chair, defeated. My first act as CEO, I announce, is to terminate the employment of all unqualified executives, effective immediately. Mr. James Peterson, your consulting contract is also terminated. Security will escort you to clear out your offices. As if on cue, security appeared at the door. I'd arranged this days ago, knowing how the meeting would end. You can't just throw us out, James protested. We built this company. No, I corrected him. The employees you exploited built this company, the ones you pushed aside to make room for your family members. That ends now. As security led them out, I could hear Kevin in the hallway, his voice rising in protest as he realized his cushy future had evaporated. The remaining board members stayed to discuss transition plans. I already had a list of qualified internal candidates to promote into the vacant executive positions. Talented people who'd been overlooked in favor of Marcus's relatives. That evening, I sat in my office, my real office now, the CEO's corner suite, reviewing personnel files. A knock at the door interrupted my work. Come in, I called, surprised to see Marcus standing there. Security must have let him up for one last visit. I underestimated you, he said quietly. All these years I thought you were just another employee, someone I could push around, replace when convenient. That was your mistake, I replied. You saw people as tools to use and discard. I saw them as the heart of this company. He nodded slowly. The board approved your reorganization plan. James is furious, threatening to sue. But we both know he won't. Too much would come out in discovery. Was there something you wanted, Marcus? Besides stating the obvious, he pulled an envelope from his jacket. My formal resignation. I assume you were going to demand it anyway. I took the envelope, not bothering to open it. You know what the real difference between us is, Marcus? You saw this company as your family's property, something to exploit. I saw it as a responsibility to our employees, our customers, our community. And now it's all yours, he said bitterly. No, I corrected him. Now it belongs to everyone who works here, everyone who earns their position through merit, not nepotism. That's the company I'm going to build. After you left, I walked through the quiet office. Most employees had gone home, but a few lights still burned at distant desks, dedicated people staying late to finish projects, unaware that their workplace was about to transform. Tomorrow would bring big changes. My first company-wide memo was already drafted, announcing the restructuring and new opportunities for internal advancement. The qualified employees Marcus had overlooked would finally get their chance to shine. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Saw the company announcement, CEO. Why didn't you tell me? I smiled, remembering all the times I'd wanted to share my plan but couldn't risk it leaking. Mom had taught me the value of patience, of working quietly toward your goals while others underestimated you. Never let them see you coming, she always said. Well, they hadn't seen me coming, and now Davidson and Mills would become the company it should have been all along. I glanced at the brass nameplate on my desk. Sarah Mitchell, Chief Executive Officer. It had a nice ring to it. Somewhere across town, Marcus was probably drowning his sorrows, wondering how his just an employee had outmaneuvered him so completely. Kevin was likely updating his LinkedIn profile, discovering that his primary qualification, being Marcus's nephew, suddenly carried a lot less weight. But I wasn't thinking about them. I was thinking about tomorrow, about the changes I would implement, the careers I would help build, the company culture I would transform. Marcus had tried to force me to train my replacement. Instead, I'd replaced him. Sometimes karma works out perfectly. The next morning, I arrived early again. Old habits die hard. But this time, instead of preparing for battle, I was preparing to rebuild. The company-wide email went out at 8 a.m. sharp. Dear colleagues, today marks a new chapter for Davidson and Mills. Merit, not connections, will determine advancement. Hard work, not nepotism, will shape our future. I know many of you have felt overlooked, undervalued, held back by an old system that prized relationships over results. That ends now. In the coming weeks, all executive positions will be open to internal applications. Every employee will have a fair chance to advance based on their qualifications and contributions. This is your company too. Let's build something extraordinary together. Best regards, Sarah Mitchell, Chief Executive Officer. The responses started flooding in immediately. Messages of congratulation, of hope, of relief that things were finally changing. But my favorite came from Janet in accounting, who'd been passed over for promotion 3 times in favor of Marcus's golf buddies. Thank you for showing us that sometimes justice wins. When can I apply for CFO? I smiled.